I hope you're having a good day. Hello, my name is Susan Quindag, and I will be sharing some thoughts and a paper on what spirituality sounds like, a Christian's journey with amazing grace. This is for the International Society for Music Education. Part 1, a single voice. My clock radio woke me up as it did every weekday morning when I was 13. Usually, I had it tuned to my favorite rock station. That morning, the DJ played a song that I hadn't heard. It was a slow song, and it didn't have much of a beat, like Oye Como Va. Nor did the text tell the story of a lost love, like, it's too late, baby, now it's too late. This was very weird. A single voice, a woman's voice with no instruments in the background, singing this text. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. For some reason, I liked it. I didn't know what it meant, but it sounded like peace. I didn't think a song that didn't have a dancing beat would be interesting, but there was something about that song. And that was Judy Collins singing Amazing Grace, the DJ said after it was done. Okay, Judy, for some crazy reason, I want to hear this song again. The next time I heard the song over my clock radio, I recorded it on my new tape recorder. And even though the quality wasn't good, I listened to it over and over again. By the way, what's a wretch? Part 2, my personal savior. I had an experience. Some would call me a Jesus freak, but my closest friends just said that I got religious, maybe too religious for my own good. I didn't see it that way when I was 17. I was in a traditional religion that was typical of Filipinos, even among Filipinos like my parents who immigrated to America. But I left that religion and accepted Jesus Christ as my personal savior. I didn't quite understand what it all meant, but I knew that the Bible was true and that my sins separated me from God. But God so loved the world that he sent Jesus Christ to die on the cross for my sins. I repented and asked Jesus Christ to come into my heart. I started regularly attending a conservative fundamental Baptist church in San Francisco. I liked learning about the Bible and had to get used to hearing preaching rather than going through a series of rituals. Along with biblical truth, I was also taught that to not just be a Christian, but a good Christian, I would have to give up movies, wear dresses to church, and not listen to rock or pop music. So I threw out all my tapes and rock records and tuned my clock radio to the classical station. With my newfound practices, I knew I was destined to be godly, or so I thought. Since I was going to a Baptist church, I had to learn new hymns and gospel songs. At the services, an organist and pianist would always accompany the singing, and there were more congregational songs than I was used to. It was much more informal, and I enjoyed that. I had some favorite gospel songs that I loved singing, like Blessed Assurance and To God Be the Glory. But one Sunday morning, I heard something that I never thought I would hear in a conservative, fundamental Baptist church. Before the message, the song leader said exuberantly, let's sing number 72, Amazing Grace. What? We're singing a rock song in church? I thought to myself, well, maybe it wasn't the same song that Judy Collins made famous in 1969. Maybe it wasn't a rock song that I taped and listened to over and over again. Maybe it wasn't a rock song that I threw away because I wanted to be a good Christian. But it was. And even though I was confused and conflicted, I sang along with the others, so nobody knew I had questions. Many questions. Do these people know they're singing a rock pop song? Can God be happy with this? But what makes a song, any song, spiritual? What does spirituality sound like? Part 3, 10 trillion years. Remember, when we sing that last verse here, we always say, when we've been there 10 trillion years, 10,000 years isn't enough when describing eternity. I heard that repeatedly from many song leaders at Bob Jones University during the chapel time. They were referring to the last verse typically sung in Amazing Grace. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. I spent 35 and a half years teaching music and music education at Bob Jones University, a conservative Christian university in the USA. When I first heard this rendition, sung by over 6,000 individuals in harmony, I thought that it was glorious. After all, John Newton, the writer of Amazing Grace, was trying to give a sense of eternity to all of us who were restricted with time and space. However, as I matured as a Christian and as a music educator who loves the study of psychology of music, this 10 trillion years statement, among others, caused me to ponder the profundity of music. That is one of the reasons I chose to meditate on the beauty of the relationship with God and what makes music spiritual, rather than the earlier questions I had about rock music. For example, in the description of eternity in Revelations 21 of the Bible, there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Therefore, the physical properties that we use to create, perform, and listen to music, frequency, intensity, and waveform, will not be the same or may not even exist. Then in 1 Corinthians 15:53 of the Bible, where there is a description of the resurrection of Christians, our body will be changed from corruptible to incorruptible. Therefore, the minute organs in our ears and in our brain that function to process and perceive music will be perfected, and we will hear music in an entirely different way. I know after studying the book of the Revelation that there is music in eternity, but what it sounds like, I do not know. I do believe, however, that our greatest symphonies and musical works that we compose and perform in this temporal state will sound like a cheap jingle in eternity. No wonder John Newton was confounded by words to express this future glory. By the way, I remember hosting a music education colleague who presented a paper on Suzanne Langer's virtual time and virtual space. As we discussed Langer's theory, I mentioned that perhaps we long to be in a state of aesthetic experience, a state of virtual time and space, a state of flow, because we are created to live in eternity. Does this thought give you another perspective of the sound of spirituality? Part 4, honored with an invitation. In 2007, I was honored with an invitation by the West African government and the United States Embassy to present workshops and lectures on gullah music throughout Sierra Leone, West Africa, as part of the 200th year commemoration toward abolishing slavery. To prepare for this excursion, I studied the life of William Wilberforce, the Christian British Member of Parliament who wrote a letter on the abolition of the slave trade in 1807. Right before that time, he became friends with John Newton, the author of Amazing Grace. Newton was once so despicable, wretched global slave trader. Later, he also was enslaved. However, he eventually became a Christian and repented of his sins, even the sin of slave trading. He worked tirelessly along Wilberforce to abolish slavery. In the movie Amazing Grace, the work of Wilberforce and the friendship with Newton was portrayed. In one scene, Newton was dictating his memoirs and describing the deplorable act of the slave trade. I thought to myself that he must have been tormented throughout his life when he thought about what he had done to other human beings who were made in the image of God. Yet, because he understood the depths of his wicked sinfulness, he knew that there was nothing he could do for redemption, but had to believe in Bible verses such as Ephesians 2:8. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. And through that understanding, he could sing, and 'twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Part 5, Into Eternity. 2019 was a year for change. I started a consulting business and an exciting new academic position in the graduate school at Liberty University. I even worked as an academic coach at a local community college. But my greatest change came on May 10th, when my mother passed away into eternity. Mom suffered with dementia for over 6 years, and every vacation or long weekend I had, I flew out to Arizona to be with her and help with her care. Like some of you may already know, people who have dementia have good days and bad days, and eventually the bad days overcome the good. Through this period, I always looked into my mother's eyes and saw life slowly slipping away. But despite her failing, corruptible body, she loves to sing hymns. Even when she could not string words together to make a whole sentence, if somebody would start singing a hymn, she would sing 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 verses from memory. My mom would even start singing the hymns on her own in the middle of the night and interrupt my sleep. Her favorite was How Great Thou Art, but she also loved Amazing Grace. When it was time to prepare her memorial service, I wanted to celebrate her life with her favorite hymns. I found a copy of Amazing Grace from an old hymn book and read an obscure verse that I had never sung, and I knew we had to sing it as part of the service. Every time I read this verse, I feel like my mom is talking to me right before the moment she dropped her head after eating a tiny bit of breakfast and took her last breath. Yes, when this flesh and heart shall fail and mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within the veil a life of joy and peace. Amazing Grace is a phenomenal spiritual song. It has transcended time and culture and continues to be one of the most beloved performed sacred songs in the world. I appreciate you taking this autoethnographic journey with me about Amazing Grace. And I hope you can see why this hymn, this spiritual song, can be a pattern to answer the question on what spirituality sounds like. So I'd like to give you a few thoughts and offer these ideas to you. What does spirituality sound like? It is a sound that arrests and tugs on the heart and soul of a sojourner, a wretch, or just a sinner toward a light that is brighter than no other. It is a sound that can be with us when we are mere infants in our spiritual journey until we are mature and understand the things that were once hidden. It is a sound that cannot be fully explained and is not easily understood by rules, laws, or patterns that we may develop. It is a sound that can remind us of our imperfections and our dismal past while creating the possibilities of unexplainable joy. It is a sound of a loved one who is describing the passage from life to death and to new life. However mysterious, it is a sound that transcends our temporal state so we may have a foretaste of eternity. But above all else, it is a sound that secures us in a perfect relationship with the one who lovingly sacrificed his love for us because of his amazing grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you again for taking this journey with me. I just want to tell you that the transcripts are available upon request, and there is my email address. And if you just want to talk or just communicate with me, I'd enjoy hearing from you. So please feel free to email me at any time. There is one more thing that I want to say. This presentation is dedicated to my students and former students who continue to make me think and think a lot. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you on July 27th during the second session of the ISME conference.